welcome everyone. We'd like to open our gathering here with a moment of silence in remembrance of all those suffering across the world. I invite you now to close your eyes or have a soft gaze off your device. A few words from our dearly beloved Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He said, "We are each made for goodness, love, and compassion. Our lives are transformed as much as the world is when we live these truths. Do your little bit of good wherever you are. It's those little bits of good put together that transform the world." I invite us all to take a deep breath in and out and bring our gaze back onto the screen and just take a moment to look around in acknowledgement of everyone who's here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucille, for that beautiful opening and inspirational quote. Well, today's program, it's in two parts. First part will be a presentation of the Gender Equity and Reconciliation International, and followed by experiential exercise that we will facilitate. So the presentation will give an overview of GERI, including our history, the program areas that we cover, a few examples of the process and the work, and some of the academic research that has been done. So before we start, we'll do brief introductions from the facilitation team.
Thank you, Hugo. As I said before, my name is Silvia, and I was born and raised in Costa Rica. My background is in psychology and in trauma and trauma-informed practices. I started my work doing women's circles in Costa Rica, working with the difficult situations and day-to-day routines that especially us women have to go through in some countries like Costa Rica. In 2018, I was introduced to gender equity and reconciliation through a conference, and since then, I couldn't look back. It's the perfect work, and it's exactly what I was looking for, and here I am since then. Thank you.
And my name, as I said, is Evans Mwangi. I'm a cybersecurity engineer in Sweden, working with Volvo Cars Corporation. Originally from Kenya, East Africa, and that's where my journey of this gender equity and reconciliation started. My story is about when I was homeless when I went through initiation or circumcision in the Kenyan culture. And that was such a big blessing for me in the later years. That is why what I realized when I joined GERI, it was a blessing in disguise, because I found that I was different from other men because I was not taught how to be a man. And I came to GERI and realized how important and special that gift was for me. And I started creating circles for men in Kenya and trying to experience myself and accepting my difference and seeing the beauty in it, how I am free as a human being other than a man. So I am an evangelist of saying I am a human being more than a man, so that I can be a human being with others in the community. So I have been in GERI for like 3 years now, and I'm enjoying and I am loving this journey. And it's such an honor and a great moment to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Evans. So I'm Lucille. I'm born and bred in Cape Town, South Africa. Currently, I'm a GERI trainer and CEO of a non-profit organization called Chrysalis Academy. My academic background is in adult education, and I'm extremely blessed to work with young people in the Western Cape and young people who have experienced a great deal of complex trauma. I'm a yoga therapy teacher and a trauma release provider. And I thought I came to GERI over 10 years ago because of the young people in need of the gender work, only to discover when I stepped into my first GERI workshop that actually I needed to deal with my own gender wounding. And so my journey has been with our young people, but also my own unfolding as a human being. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucille. My name is Tristan from Cape Town, South Africa, and my background is in youth development, and I'm also an ordained minister. At the age of 17, I witnessed my mother, who at the time was 6 months pregnant, being physically assaulted in public by a partner. I was deeply struck by the fact that no man wanted or had the courage to step in or intervene. And this gender experience and wounding has stayed with me until I did my first 3-day workshop and was completely blown away by the level of truth-telling that I experienced. And I experienced this without any shame or blame. Needless to say, the GERI bug bit me, and I knew that I had to be part of the work. And I'm now a facilitator, trainer, and also the LGBTQ+ project lead for GERI. Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan. My name again is Cynthia Brix. I am the co-founder of Gender Equity and Reconciliation International, GERI. And I'm a mother of 2 children, Patrick and Emily, who are grown adults, and a granddaughter, Melody. Can't forget them. They are important in my gender story. When I'm an ordained interfaith minister as well, and bring the lens of the inner spiritual or interfaith to the work as much as we can. So my gender story is, one of my gender stories is when I worked in a corporation in health and wellness in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the States. And shortly after I became middle management there, the chairman of the board, the CEO, the founder of the organization sexually propositioned me over a business dinner. He said, "Cynthia, I've enjoyed getting to know you, and now it's time to take our relationship to a deeper, more intimate sexual level." I said no, and he didn't hear my no. He continued to pressure me. I eventually got pushed out of that corporation. It didn't take long. I tried to go with heart and compassion and understanding, and they just weren't there to meet me. They hired 6 attorneys to my 1. And when I was pushed out of that corporation, I didn't trust men. I didn't like men. I didn't want to be around men. But I also didn't trust women because they betrayed me too. They had to keep their job. So it took a lot of healing to come back into a place of trust, of deeper understanding that we're all in a system that oppresses, and into a place of this work. I came into this work and have been doing the work for over 24 years now. So thank you. It's a joy to be here with you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Okay, Hugo Sanchez here. I'm a GERI trainer. I am honored to assist Silvia on the GERI and Latin America Spain initiative and programs. My background academically is in social communications from Universidad del Zulia in Venezuela, and I have about 20 years of experience in working in advertising agencies in New York City 5 years ago, I left the corporate world to pursue my passion to create collective change. And I'm now an experienced yoga teacher, founder of Pacha Yoga. I have certifications on Yoga Alliance continuing education. I'm a continuing education provider for yoga teachers. I'm a yoga teacher trainer. I'm also the co-founder of Prosperity Trend Private Investments, and had been involved with the Mankind Project organization, where I have facilitated the New Warrior training adventure to empower men to live lives of integrity, authenticity, and service. Through Mankind, I regained my authenticity and my integrity as a man, something that I have lost. I was basically trained to be that typical machista, man in the box, man don't cry, man don't, we are entitled to everything. And learning through my mistakes and having the opportunity to come to GERI and being accepted, being redeemed, being forgiven, and forgive myself, it made it clear to me that uh, being in GERI is going to be part of the rest of my life, to facilitate, to contribute, to do anything I can to foster that collective change that we need.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you to each of you. We also want to acknowledge our GERI companions here. They are other facilitators of GERI, or they're in the training. We have Annette and Savitri, Marco, Clay, Fabrizio, and Leslie. There may be others here. So when we're in the experiential piece of the work later in the session, you may meet them, and we just wanted to acknowledge them and thank them for being here to support the team. We're going to move into now a more fuller presentation of our work and the history, as Hugo said, and then later we'll go into the experiential process. We're going to show some slides while we each share a bit, and then a short video. We want to encourage you to be mindful of self-care. It's important, even though we're just presenting and sharing stories, as some of us already have done, it's important to take care of yourself. So remember to breathe, to maybe do some bilateral movement if you feel a charge or a trigger at any time during our session. It's amazing, I think, for myself even, that sometimes just watching a movie or hearing a news story, it can bring things up that are challenging for me to hear. So take good care of yourself. The GERI work was born in the environmental movement in the 1980s and 1990s. My co-founder, William Keepin, who is a mathematical physicist, was working on sustainable energy solutions for preventing climate change. At this time, in that movement, there were considerable sexual harassment going on within the environmental movement, which was taboo to talk about. This was creating tremendous pain, and it was a hidden crisis of the human ecology, right in the heart of our environmental movement that was committed to healing our natural ecology with the earth. So a small group, including Will, began organizing early gatherings that they called Gender and Ecology, with the byline, "Are there parallels between the exploitation of the earth and the exploitation of the feminine?" These initial workshops blew the lid off of Pandora's box, revealing a vast and profound healing that was needed. Over the next several years, they developed and refined the methodology that we're doing now today, 24 years later. Will was inspired by the Truth and Reconciliation process in South Africa, so he renamed the work Gender Reconciliation. And then later, we added equity to our name, becoming Gender Equity and Reconciliation International, GERI.
In 2001, we were invited to India, and in 2003 to South Africa. And over the next decade, the work expanded primarily in these countries. and then came back again with new impetus to the States around 2012. Over the years, GERI has continued to expand into an international training and development organization that has at its heart the eradication of the exploitation of all beings. We like to think of ourselves as a community of practitioners across the world. We currently have 4 simultaneous professional facilitator training running this year, 3 in-person trainings in India, in Kenya, and the States, plus 1 online training for Latin America and Spain that recently completed.
Thank you, Lucille and Cynthia, for that beautiful background. And so we would like to share again GERI has been introduced in 18 countries with nearly 30,000 participants. And we've trained over 300 facilitators and trainers in the work around the globe. The mission of Gender Equity and Reconciliation International is to transform gender injustice and establish beloved community in human society. And to paraphrase the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., injustice and corruption will never be transformed by keeping them hidden, but only by bringing them into the light and confronting them with the power of love. This is the core purpose and methodology of our work called Gender Equity and Reconciliation International.
So what we do is that we create safe forums for women and men and people of all genders and sexual orientations to have intimate and often taboo conversations around gender and sexuality. In these carefully facilitated forums, participants are invited to bring their personal stories of pain and suffering into the open and speak truth to their gendered experience, not as victims, but as witnesses to their lives.
To give an example of our GERI programs, a young male participant who have, let's call him James, he declared in one of our workshops that, I don't know how to be a man anymore. I feel traumatized. And James was visibly shaken after another participant, Rebecca, has recounted very graphically the horrific story of her rape. So she had come to our GERI program, and she came to the program as a way to prepare herself to face her rapist in court the following month. So this was a very intense moment. There's pin drop silence when Rebecca finished speaking in the group. And the men sat there frozen. They were in their chairs, couldn't move, couldn't say anything. Several of the women were quietly weeping. Nobody had ever heard a rape story told in this way, with such a direct and shattering a way. So the male facilitators reflected back to James. They said to him, "You don't know how to be a man anymore because you deeply hurt Rebecca and her story, and you opened your heart to her pain." So you feel traumatized as well as we all do. And this transformation here, this moment is the key of the work that we do and illustrating the principle of gender reconciliation work. When we experience the pain of another person as our pain, we create that bridge across our hearts. And then this will transform us forever. Both of us, both of whoever is um, in the presence of this transformation. So prior to this workshop, Rebecca had carried this pain of her rape by herself, but now James is carrying part of that pain with her. And this transforms the very identity of James as a man. A year later, James entered the professional training with us, and he became a certified facilitator for the GERI program.
So, as mentioned earlier, the foundation of the GERI work is based on the principle of truth and reconciliation, which were developed by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and others and applied to racial healing and reconciliation. GERI applies these very same principles for gender healing and reconciliation. The GERI work is focused on gender and sexuality. And of course, we are aware and very sensitive around the intersectionalities. Gender never exists alone. Gender exists with race, with culture, religion, ability, and faith. So our programs include a range of different activities with different foci. Our programs include our signature program, the Me Too to We Too Together. That's becoming whole together. We also have a professional immersion facilitator training, and we're doing that across the world. We also run specific program for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And as Tristan alluded, we run the LGBTQ plus courses, and that we also do across the world. And I'm delighted to say our courses are offered in English, in Spanish, we speak isiXhosa, and Hindi. So there's a lot of recognition of the cultural and country specificities. So now we're going to talk a little bit about these programs in a little bit more detail. So I want to talk very briefly about our signature program. This is our 3-day program, and that is called the Me Too to We Too Together. And this is really a forum where over 3 days, men and women and people of all orientations come together to share their gendered experiences and build beloved community.
I'm also honored to share that one of the newest programs that we have currently is for Latin America and Spain. And as Lucille said, we run these in Spanish. Last year, we had our first online training. So we have the first group of trainees now starting to practice and to go and spread the work in their communities. So we have a beautiful cohort of 13 new trainees, and they are from Mexico, they're from Ecuador, they're from Costa Rica, from Spain, and from Argentina.
Yeah, and in regards to the BIPOC program, it's important to mention that intersectionalities of gender, of sexual orientation, of race, and identity of the culture, ethnicity, these are topics that or intersectionalities that have been always important aspect of the GERI work. So then the specialized GERI BIPOC programs convene a dedicated space for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to do the gender healing work together. These facilitation teams for these workshops are all GERI facilitators of color. And these programs are very unique, very rare forum that delve deeply into the gender injustice within the dynamics of a BIPOC space.
Hugo. And so I'd like to speak a little bit about our LGBTQ plus program. And so the GERI LGBTQ plus program is a specialized application of the GERI methodology structured to embrace the full dynamic gender spectrum where people of all gender identities, expressions, and sexual orientations are invited to engage in personal reflection and unpack and explore sensitive issues of gender and sexuality. I am particularly delighted to say last year in November and December, we had 2 workshops, one in South Africa, and then the second one was a 2-day workshop with the LGBTQ plus Center for Southern Nevada in Las Vegas. And in both workshops, there was a really profound moment where people highlighted the fact that they belonged as part of a community. They felt safe and seen. And that is what we are trying to do, not just in our LGBTQ plus program, but across all of our GERI programs. Thank you.
Okay, so we have conducted the GERI programs in schools, universities, in prisons, corporations, government departments, religious institutions, and for members of the parliament. So here are a few of the universities where the GERI program has been introduced. We also have a mental health resource team who is always available for one-on-one support and to follow up on the rare cases where people might require additional support. And this is available for all the facilitation team as well as the participants. So now we'd like to show you a short video that will introduce you further into the global GERI work. So if you bear with us for a moment, we'll be sharing that video momentarily.
Never heard of a gender reconciliation workshop. I didn't know what to expect in the first place. The work itself is so powerful, and that was enough to just pull you in and let you fully participate.
One man said at the end of this work, "I'm glad to have seen women speaking from their heart. A about the way they've been violated, because I myself as a man have done many of these things, and today I'm aware of the pain that I have caused. Another woman said, I used to hate every man, but now as a result of this work, I'm a new person, and I've learned that not all men are the same, and I respect men.
She was narrating this story. Actually, my tears came out. My tears came out, and that is the reason that triggered my spirit to feel that I need to apologize.
The miracle of all that was when one of the gentlemen stood up and went to the center and knelt down. Even I feel emotional when I talk about it. You know about our culture, and you know how men don't give any space. And this gentleman went and knelt down and said, I want to apologize on behalf of your uncles. And then the girl just started weeping. And she said, at that moment, when that man knelt down and apologized, she forgave him. A hatred that she had carried for so long. And she was just cleansed. That was powerful. That was awesome to see. I mean, it works. It really works. It really changes people's lives.
So here we come to collaborate on a partnership that has already shown very good results. These two people here have, how many years now? 21, it's okay. Have been working on this whole question of gender reconciliation.
The work of racial reconciliation is never going to be complete without the work of gender reconciliation.
What is different about this work from any other gender work that is mostly happening in different institutions? The difference about this work is that we work with both men and women, and it's about healing, not blame.
When we did that little ritual, you know, because I was positive and energized, you know, and when it happened and seeing how genuine it was, and I sat there and I imagined that have other women experienced getting a gift and receiving it as genuinely as they did from a man before. No hidden agendas, I'm just doing this for you.
Noble woman, the richness and the big heart you have.
I honor your courage. I honor your beauty of spirit. We welcome you into the company of men.
On behalf of all men, we wish to extend and offer a deep apology for what you've had to go through in your lives.
So thank you, Hugo, for holding that space. That was really emotional and beautiful. So we want to share briefly just some of the statistical research that provides a context for the gender equity and reconciliation work. and you may be familiar with it, so please excuse us if you are familiar with the work of distinguished Professor Valerie Hudson, who's at Texas A&M University. And she and a range of other authors put together this work called Sex and World Peace. And their work was really around showing the parallel between micro-level gender violence and the macro-level state violence. And what their research found, firstly, that nations with greater gender inequality are more likely to engage in warfare, more likely to be the aggressor, and more likely to resort to higher levels of violence in conflict. Their research also showed that nations with higher rates of domestic violence are more likely to resort to war. Further, that nations with improved status of women, I actually want to repeat that for myself, nations with improved status of women are generally healthier, wealthier, less corrupt, more democratic, and more powerful on the world stage. And this is important. The best predictor of a nation's peacefulness is not its level of wealth or democracy, not even the religion, but its level of violence against women. That's the best predictor of a nation's peacefulness, its level of violence against women. Now, again, many of you may be familiar with CEDAW. That's the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and it's often called the International Women's Bill of Rights. And what is very significant, that there are some countries, including the US, that has not ratified the CEDAW Convention. So the US Congress has not endorsed the CEDAW Convention. However, Professor Hudson and a team of researchers have compiled a CEDAW shadow report for the US, and that is very significant. It's a long report, 500 pages, and within our GERI community, we are making our way through that report. But we just want to highlight what that shadow report is showing us about the situation of women in the USA. I want to say, though, although the report focuses on women in the USA, it's very applicable to all our countries. But what it basically shows, that there's a lack of physical security. That is what the report highlights. Secondly, it highlights discriminatory laws and practices. And thirdly, the lack of voice in human decision-making. So it's an important report to read. And all of this that we've just highlighted in the short space of time really provides a glimpse into why this work of GERI is so incredibly important. Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you, Lucille. as an example of how the GERI work impacts the global political landscape. Some of you may remember about 20 years ago, the president of South Africa, President Mbeki, there were many people who felt the president was denying the reality of the AIDS crisis as depicted in this political cartoon. At this time, 20 years ago, some 900 people were dying every day from AIDS. But Mbeki and his health minister actually banned the antiretroviral drug, the ARV drugs, from the country. President Mbeki's stance caused an international outrage. As you see here, Nelson Mandela was struggling mightily to convince Mbeki and his health minister to allow the ARVs into the country. And Desmond Tutu also joined in the struggle, but President Mbeki wouldn't budge. Now, there's a lot of different ideas about that and everything, and different opinions, as there often is, and there's different reasons. And President Mbeki did a lot of wonderful, great things in the country of South Africa. And this time, as you see here, is our dear friend Nozizwe Malada Rutledge, who was the Deputy Minister of Health at that time. And she had invited us to lead a GERI workshop for the members of Parliament. She was convinced that President Mbeki was dead wrong on the issue, but Mbeki had gagged her for more than 2 years and her hands were tied about doing anything. Then during one of the activities during our workshop, Nozizwe had a visionary experience. President Mbeki's mother came to her in a kind of visitation and said to her, now you and I need to have a woman-to-woman talk. I love my son, but we both know he's dead wrong on this issue. Don't you be taken in by his antics and stubbornness. You must do what's right. This experience gave Nozizwe the courage and impetus she needed, and 3 weeks after that GERI workshop ended, on World AIDS Day in 2006, Nozizwe defied the president and was instrumental in assisting South Africa to reverse its AIDS policy and ensuring that billions of rand would be brought to the ARVs, so the ARVs could be brought to South Africa. For this, she was hailed a national and international hero, and her policies reportedly saved thousands of lives and remain in effect today.
A 2-year research project was launched at 2 South African universities on the GERI methodology. The research was spearheaded by Professor Phumla Gobodo Madikizela, a world-renowned specialist on trauma and forgiveness who worked closely with Desmond Tutu as the clinical psychologist for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The principal investigator was Dr. Samantha van Schalkwyk, both researchers at Stellenbosch University. A cohort of 28 university students participated in this research. 2 intensive GERI programs were conducted, plus follow-up sessions every month for an entire academic year. Everything was audio recorded, and the voluminous data were transcribed and meticulously analyzed. The researchers concluded the following. The students excavated their experiences of gender and sexuality, peeling away various layers of socialization and silencing, and thereby began to free themselves collectively and individually from the lifelong shackles of patriarchal conditioning. This work has the potential to change realities and promote a safer life for all genders. And this program should be mandatory for students entering university environment. This research is chapter 24 in our newly published book titled Gender Equity and Reconciliation, 30 years of healing the most ancient wound in the human family. Thank you.